Sacrifices. Well, you know what a sacrifice is. It's when you have to give up something. And that's what we're going to be talking about today on Semen Retention. So, part of SR is understanding sacrifice. You are sacrificing millions of things on SR. The sacrificing never ends. Where do you begin sacrificing on SR? Well, here's where you begin. First, you sacrifice pleasure. Yes, you sacrifice instant pleasure. So, what happens? Well, you're battling with yourself and you're sacrificing a sudden hit of pleasure. How many days can you do it? For me, I think when I first started off, I was able to maybe do 3 or 4 days in a row, and then it quickly became a week, then it became 2 weeks, then it became a month, and then I think I probably maxed around 2.5 months at one stage, and then I just kind of didn't care much about SR and did little 2-week stints, if that. But right now I am sitting on 10 months of SR. So I have been sacrificing for 10 months, nearly a year. But I've been practicing and sacrificing through this practice for probably about 4 years now, maybe 3.5. So that is one aspect of your life you are going to sacrifice on SR. Now, another aspect of your life is sacrificing connections. And the connections could be something superficial. Like, for example, maybe going to drinks with your mates on a certain day. Like, let's say it's a sporting event day, going to drinks. You're sacrificing that because through the development of your spiritual journey and being on SR, you're going to realize that a lot of these superficial events and kind of meaningless, shallow kind of traditions, they're not even traditions, they'd be lucky to be 100 years old, a lot of these things that we celebrate, especially in Australian culture and American culture as well. So you're sacrificing all that stuff. You're sacrificing keeping up with the Joneses. You're sacrificing catching up with what's the latest thing on Netflix. You're sacrificing caring about who's the trendy musician that's come out, or what's the trendy song. You sacrifice all those superficial connections that you would usually maybe pay a bit of attention, not all your attention to. Then you actually sacrifice some deeper connections, and these could be friendships, these could be relationships, these could even be family members. To be honest, I haven't made any severe sacrifices to my family. I love my family and I am completely in support of all of them. But I can understand in certain scenarios where you probably should sacrifice connecting with certain family members, because some people are just beyond repair, especially if they're very narcissistic and selfish people, which unfortunately a lot of people struggle with. So through SR, you're going to gain an insight and an awareness that this person isn't going to allow you to become your fullest and most fulfilled, genius self. In fact, they will be a triggering point for you relapsing on SR. So sacrifice is 100% necessary to keep you on that track, keep you on the track. Alright, so what else have we got? Friendships as part of the connections. I found that a lot of my friends that I ended up losing through my practice of SR weren't really friends. They were just people that were using me because they liked what I could give them. And when I think about it, I was using them because I liked what they could give me. But through discernment and clarity in the practice of SR, I understood that these friendships were shallow. They weren't actually really friendly. There was when you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. And when you realise that that's what the friendship is made up of, you gotta dip. You gotta get out of it. You gotta get out of there, mate. You know? No. But no, in all seriousness, all those people can F off. I look back on some of those friendships that I've sacrificed and I'm like, I should have done this 5 years ago, 6 years ago, some of them even 10 years ago. I would have been a god by now. I'm joking. But like, the whole idea is understanding that just you're overstaying your welcome within some people's worlds, and the world that is calling for you has been waiting a long time. When you sacrifice these connections, you step into your power, you step into your higher self, and your wings literally grow. Like, when I have been on this journey, I look at my house. Okay, so let's talk about something. Sacrificing distractions, yeah? So sacrificing the instant dopamine hits, that's what we're doing. When I'm at my house, I used to think, I'll watch another YouTube video, and then I'll do that. Oh, actually, hang on, I've got something on my phone, gave me a notification, I'll check that first. Watch another YouTube video, and then I'll clean the house. And before you know it, you didn't even take the dishes to the kitchen, you didn't even take the cup to the kitchen. There's still that mess that you spilt on the floor. There's still that part of the kitchen top that needs cleaning. All of that is kept as a mess because you didn't sacrifice the instant gratification. You didn't sacrifice the distractions. And through SR, you start to realize these things, these distractions, they all just want to pull you off your center. They always just want to pull you off track. And even if you're having, like, for example, a conversation with someone online, whether you know them, like, let's use dating apps for an example. You'll be having really good conversations with someone, but then the next day they just ghost you, and then they put you in a state of mind that you're like, oh, far out, what's wrong with them? Well, you never know. Maybe they're living their life. Maybe they've got like a huge amount of responsibilities they're going to take care of before they open up Snapchat or whatever. So you realize you got to sacrifice the distractions. I'm gonna tell a story on a later episode about how SR can attract someone into your life, whether you like it or not. But in terms of sacrificing, a lot of the times, these games of chasing and messaging and just kind of having pen pals. So a pen pal is someone that would write a letter to someone else, and you just constantly send letters to each other. That's what happened in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s before people used phones. I never had a pen pal because I was born in the wrong era. But dating apps is basically the same as a pen pal. And also social media as well, if you add randoms on social media. So the distractions are going to pull you off center. Someone's going to project, someone's going to tell you something that you don't really know, or give you an opinion about something you don't want, and it's going to pull you off center. So you're going to be needing to sacrifice those distractions. And when you sacrifice distractions, to go back to that mess analogy of like the kitchen, you have more time. And you think, in my head now, I just think to myself, how can I make this let's say if my perception of myself was high and I'm a king, well then, is there an alignment if I'm leaving a mess after myself? Does a king really do that? Does a king leave his toilet dirty? Does a king have his butt crack hanging out when he bends over? Guys, have some class. And the only way that you can do that is through holding on, is through SR, Semen Retention. So, that is sacrificing. You need to sacrifice things. There's a lot more things that you sacrifice on SR. And maybe I'll make another episode later on outlining everything. But to summarize what you are sacrificing